What's good, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know what it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. What Tampa City rocks or rock and metal thrive. May the 4th be with you, everybody, because it is Tuesday, May 4th. It is Star Wars Day. Also, happy birthday to one of my friends, Josh, who I haven't seen in like 10 years almost at this point. Happy birthday, Josh. Yeah, I'm still saying happy birthday to him. So we've got a great episode for you today as, again, when it comes to metalcore, you guys know I love this stuff, and I'm going to be bringing you even more great stuff with Justin Fornof from the band WRISTMEETRAZOR. They have a brand new album called Replica of a Strange Love coming out on June 11th. Yes, we talk about them. We talk about the concepts of the album. We talk about the idea behind it, but we also get in depth with how music just connects with us emotionally, and how I think the biggest thing to take away from this is when it comes to the year that we just went through with 2020 and into 2021, and when we can finally get back to normal with live music, that artists have the best chance in order to tell the history of what has happened to us, whether artists or musicians through 2021. Yes, of course, you know, it's going to be written in the history books, but that's more binary. That's more, you know, plain black and white. But when it comes to describing the emotions, of course, you're not going to get that in a book. You want to know how you're going to get that and really feel that? Through the music that's going to be created over the next couple of years. So it's going to be something that's incredible. Remember, please, as a toll for this podcast, please refer us to a friend that loves rock and metal music. So please welcome Justin. Yes, Justin Fornof. I said Josh for some reason. Please welcome Justin Fornof from the band WRISTMEETRAZOR. Are you guys ready? You better be. Let's go! Yeah! Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast, you know me. You know me. I love my punk rock, hard rock, and of course, I love me some metalcore as well. And anytime I get to hear bands coming out with some brand new stuff, I'm always down for it, always in for it. And when I got this band's information sent to me, I'm like, let's take a listen. I listened to the song, and I'm like, yeah, can we get them on the podcast? And boom, here we are today. Please welcome to the podcast from the band WRISTMEETRAZOR, Mr. Justin Fornof. So Justin, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. How's everything going in your world on this day and age?
You know, it's going. We're moving along every day. Hopefully, getting closer to being on the road, putting out a record soon. So,
again, with the new record coming out soon, and you guys want to get back on the road. I mean, hell, for all us fans, we want you guys to get back on the road because we want to get back into the crowds. We want to get back into seeing live music. And if you're like me, probably getting hurt in a mosh pit. But you know what? I haven't been hurt in a mosh pit in over a year. I miss that.
Yeah. That's all the familiarities of playing shows have been sorely missed. I think everyone agrees.
Oh, everyone does. And just, again, seeing like with different things come out over the course of the like last couple of weeks where all of a sudden it's different festivals, you know, they're getting the go ahead, different lineup releases for those. And then some different things. Well, there are people that are just getting amped up for it, like myself. I recently saw, of course, with I think a big one that people are really going to take a little bit of a hit on is MCR postponing everything until 2022. And it does suck, but you know, what are you going to do about it?
Right. No, I was reading about that this morning too. I understand where a band like My Chemical Romance is coming from, though. I mean, they're going to draw some of the biggest numbers of anyone in rock music right now. And so I feel like they feel like they have a duty to their fans. So I can appreciate that, respect that for sure.
I can understand as well. I think you can take out just rock music and put music in general, because just the cultural impact they had on anybody that was, I mean, anywhere between the ages, I would say 20 and 40 as of right now. Those would be the people that are going to go to those shows and pack those crowds. So it makes a lot of sense for them to understand that it might not be the best time right now as everything's starting to open back up to gather at that point. But then next year, hopefully you get the go ahead, and all of a sudden people are going to have that like that angsty anticipated MCR show. The energy is going to be there because they were gone for so long. They were on hiatus for so long, and all of a sudden they came back, and then the pandemic hit, and then they had a scheduled tour. Now that got postponed again. It's just the energy is going to be absolutely insane for that. And the amount of people that are going to want to show up for that is going to be enormous.
Yeah, no, it'll be cool. I'm glad things are starting to at least get to the point where we can have dates to look forward to, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to help out a lot with mentality for people that love music, that perform live as well, because now we have that. It's kind of like we have that image in the future. It's like, okay, we have something to look forward to. We have something set instead of we don't know what the hell is going to happen in the next like year or so. We have an idea.
Right. Right, right. It's better than some of the early predictions of 2023 and whatever else that was.
Oh yeah, when I saw that first one, I was like, yes, might not be back till like 2023. I'd be like, it better not be that long.
Right, right. I kind of always, I felt very strongly that that was, it was a very safe estimation, but it was way over jumped. So I felt good about that. But even, I mean, just seeing those words in like the press is kind of, it's kind of jarring. Even if you are a musician and you feel like that's not going to be true, it's still jarring to see.
It still is, because again, it has a fact of, if this is going to be the worst case scenario, I mean, you wouldn't be playing live for 3 years at that point.
Oh yeah,
And
the like the logistics of it are insane as a musician. Like if that were to be the case, the logistics of even like continuing a band that tours regularly and is like able to keep its head above water, not being able to do a show for 3 years is like it's a death knell almost, you know?
oh, it absolutely would have been. I mean, even with the pandemic, how many different bands that we didn't even know about, especially on a smaller scale, that were really starting to like gain a name for themselves, maybe in a local scene or more in a regional scene, have had to split up or just completely disband
Right.
because of the pandemic. And it's basically due to factors that aren't even on their own. It's not musical differences, not artistic differences. It's just the fact that, the world kind of fucked us over.
Yeah, yeah. And also like when you have that kind of momentum and then you lose it, it all stops at once. You kind of it becomes a morale thing, and then it becomes like you know, getting guys on board that want to tour all the time. And it's there's a lot of different factors that kind of have gone into the COVID thing that a lot of people probably don't even think about when it comes to like your favorite bands touring and stuff. There's way more than just, what you see.
Yeah, because even when you just brought up the morale thing, I didn't even think of that at the first place, too. Just thinking about it with how much we've seen over the course of the past, just over a year at this point with COVID-19, and with everything being shut down, all of us kind of having to be more isolated in terms of the people that we hang out with, the people who be isolated away from large crowds. All of a sudden, we're able to go back out there, and you guys are able to go back out on the road. What are some of those band members thinking that might have families, that might have loved ones that might be immunocompromised? They might not want to go out on tour anymore because they would rather make sure their family is safe than them go out on tour and basically do what they do.
Right. Or even on the other aspect of it is that maybe they can't go on tour anymore because they have a new job that basically is keeping them afloat. And when you're a full-time musician and you go from touring, 8 to 10 months a year to touring 0 months a year, it's a big hit for sure. It's a huge hit.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not like we're not talking about bands that like I'll use Metallica as an example. It's, yeah, they're going touring all the time, and all of a sudden it's just, you get that cutoff right there. However, with how much kind of social currency and social value they have had built over the past 40 years within the rock and metal like sphere, people are going to be listening to music because people are going to still be buying their merch. People are still going to be supporting them in some way. But there are still those other bands that you would see come through, your concert hall stuff, maybe headline venues that had like 1,000, 2,000 capacity. Those are the ones that potentially are really struggling, because it's those guys are going out on tour consistently almost
Right.
every single month of every single year. And all of a sudden,
Yep.
now that stops. I mean, I'm kind of nervous for the fact that there are bands that I probably saw in 2019 that I'll never be able to see again because of something like this.
Yeah, it's a real possibility. A lot of a lot of the damage that's been done over the last year probably won't be seen for a while. You won't really see like who has been hit the hardest until things have kind of returned a little bit, and then it'll be a whole different ballpark, I think.
I think that's a good way to put it too, just because we don't know exactly who's all, still doing well. We don't know who's on the fence. We don't know who's on the cusp of potentially calling it quits over everything that's happened. Plus, what happens when concerts do return and live music does return, especially with the venues that we've lost. Again, there's a smaller supply of stages and a much higher demand for bands to get on those stages. So what happens if bands that are trying to get back on the stages just can't do it due to the fact that everybody else is trying to get on those stages and get that time?
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of factors to the whole thing, which I mean, and that's I guess the more kind of negative aspect of this, which is tough too. I like to try to focus on what's working though right now, especially after a whole year of everyone focusing on how failed and broken everything is.
That's a good way. That's a good way to put it. A good way to segue it too, because yeah, why should we focus on all the stuff that's not going well? Let's focus on the stuff that is going well. Again, we got concerts coming back, especially with 2021, especially with what just happened the previous year. There are a lot of bands that are coming out with brand new music that is kicking ass right now. And you got a brand new album coming out as well. I think it's on June 11th, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so we're getting all this great new stuff to come out. And it seems like every single week, it's just I'm looking at the release dates for things, especially I'll use June as an example too, because I'm looking at the release dates. Like every week in June, when something comes out, I'm like, there are at least 2 albums I'm super duper psyched for every single week. And I'm just thinking, man, I'm loving this.
Yeah. No, it's a good time to be a music fan, I think, for sure, which is definitely much more positive for, maybe not the industry at large, but the musicians that are, kind of struggling after the last year.
Yeah, it's just there's so many more people that are ready for this stuff. And it's just when you, especially with people still, the pandemic, we're still seeing the effects of it as well from people not necessarily want to gather in these large groups right now or, slowly reopening. So people still kind of have that little more isolation, a little more bubble time. So when it comes to trying to find something new, music is consistently churning out, especially rock and metal, consistently churning out new stuff every single week. I mean, the day we're shooting this podcast, I was looking at the new albums that came out. There was 5 albums in one EP that I was super duper excited for. And I spent the whole entire day listening to them. Before this, I'm just thinking, my God, this is as a fan, this is so much fun.
Right. No, it's good stuff. It's good stuff right now.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to hearing when Replica of Strange Love comes out on June 11th. Again, there's your little plug right there for everybody that's listening, because, I'll plug that thing pretty much, probably 7 or 8 more times during this whole entire podcast. So don't worry about that. But I got to ask about this brand new album because, of course, that's pretty much the reason why I got to hear about you guys, especially with the single Last Tango in Paris. So I got to ask, when it came to this album, was this something that, especially during the pandemic, were you influenced a lot by what was going on during that time? And what were you really writing this album about?
Yeah, I mean, it's not about any one particular thing, but it is absolutely about the, I think we got to a point during the pandemic where there was no real way to contextualize a lot of the things that were happening. And I started to feel that the only way we were ever going to get a context to this was once records started coming out that's kind of spoke to the situations at hand. And so I wanted this record in small part to, be context to 2020. And I think it plays a very good role in kind of rounding out the moment, which I was trying to do in a way that I thought wasn't really getting done by other bands, at least. I don't know. I feel like moments like this are kind of hard to talk about. A lot of people feel certain ways, and I think it's natural to try to escape it. But I've always been one to dive into situations like this with, with a little bit of brash, like not really caring what other people are going to think. So I tried to put it into context that I thought spoke to me. And then besides that, the record isn't exactly as easy as just putting it in one box. It's supposed to be something that kind of goes in different directions and speaks to different things. But I think the overall context is very much molded by, what's been going on.
I think that's a good way to go about it too, because if you take a look at the base of everything and the events that happened in 2020, yeah, you're going to see a lot of different events, a lot of different things, a lot of different emotions that happened. But if you're not going to if you're going to try and focus on something even grander as well, but use that as kind of your launch point as an example, what's going to happen is when you create these songs, you're going to end up creating songs that play off of the emotions of everything that had happened, the things that people were feeling. And that can connect with people in many different ways, not just what happened in 2020, but also maybe what happened previously in life that connect them with that, maybe like a feeling of happiness, a feel of desperation, feel of depression, whatever it might be. Because one of my favorite quotes is, art decorates space, but music decorates time. So with you kind of going through this whole entire idea and trying to create something grander, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up kind of connecting people with a little bit of that jumping point of what happened in 2020, but then they're going to be able to relate to your music and really understand it and really dive deep into it and really let that affect them positively through different aspects of their life and different experiences they had even prior to 2020. Hell, even maybe when they were like little kids and all of a sudden there's just something that just pops up that they remember that they see in one of your songs. it's something that could easily take them back and just shine a light of positivity or just happiness on them at any given moment.
Oh, undeniably so. And that also speaks to, kind of one of our ideals as a band. And I think it's mostly to not chase exact genres or exact trends in music, but more to write timeless music that will be, that can be listened to for decades and still be good. So I agree with that quote a lot.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing to do something like that, like you said, like to create that more timeless music that people are gonna be able to go back to at any given moment and relate to with so many different things. Trust me, there are times like you think about certain music that does have that like long-standing feel, but it is kind of in a way dated just based on the fact of when it came out. I mean, take a look at hair metal. You listen to hair metal, you're automatically thinking the 80s. You think of grunge or like ska punk. I'm thinking the 90s with that kind of thing. But what you're trying to go for, it seems like when people are going to listen to it, it's going to be something that's going to be more uniquely your own, but also be something where I could have listened to this, back when, let's say go back to 2003, 2004, when metalcore was really getting its going, getting like popularity with bands like Killswitch Engage, As I Lay Dying, but then jump into, let's say 2035, 2040, and the bands that are working in there all of a sudden pull up some Wrist Meet Razor. Man, there's my first flub up of the day. Thank you, everybody. You can roast me in the comments on that one. But going back to Wrist Meet Razor, all of a sudden it's like 2035, going back to what you guys did this time, there might be somewhere all of a sudden it felt like it could come out, back in 2021, but also feels like come out in 2035. You could potentially have something like that.
Right, exactly. And it's undeniable that the influences are there. And I would never try to take that from anyone that, wants to compare it to other things, because I think that's the duty of the listener to kind of, come to their own conclusions while they're listening to music. I think that's what makes music so magical in a lot of ways, is you can create whatever you want with it, and you can relate to it in whatever way you want. So I would never take that from anyone. But I would say from our perspective, they are influences. We aren't trying to emulate something. So.
Oh no, even listening to Last Tango in Paris, I was trying to think about like, okay, what am I, like when it comes to sound, what can I relate this to? And I was trying to piece it together. I'm thinking, honestly, I don't know what the heck I'd relate this to. Like, I'd relate this to like, this is definitely metalcore for me, but I don't know exactly what the hell I'd relate this to, because I'm finding like certain little pieces of different influences that I've seen and heard over the past. Like all of a sudden, in the verse that you do, there's this influence here. In the chorus, here's this influence I've seen from here. All of a sudden, in the verse that Isaac from Knock Loose has, Knock Loose. If I got that wrong, I'm gonna be real mad at myself.
No, you're right. You're right.
Okay, because I listened to your song like 5 times. I went to deep dive into it, and I listened to 5 times beforehand, and I want to make sure I got that right. So yes. But like listening to his verse as well, it feels like there's a completely different influence just based off of the different vocals. Like it's something where it feels like there's a different influence in each section of the song. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a pretty fair assessment. And I think even more so in a more total kind of feel, the whole record kind of goes in that direction. So.
Really?
Yeah. I in my opinion, I think that the entire record follows the same kind of format of Last Tango, in that there isn't one genre that's played throughout, and the whole record kind of can stand up on its own as a whole, or can stand up in individual kind of ideas or songs. So yeah, no, I think so.
And that's a cool piece to have as well. And I mean, I'll relate to an album that just recently came out. I'll relate to Sleep Society by While She Sleeps, because I've listened to that album a good amount already, even though it came out the day we were shooting this. And there are certain songs on that album where I'm like, they don't necessarily, in my opinion, fit where the album was going. But over the overall theme, the overall flow of it, like there's times where it fits, times where it doesn't. But there's one time like, if you remove that and put that as a single, I'm like, huh. I think it just if it wasn't on that album, like I probably would love this thing so much more just based off of that. But then again, I'm thinking, however, if I listen to this thing and I just pull it out of nowhere once, man, I might be thinking the same thing. So it does have that same kind of feel where it's like, I can see where you're going from, where you want these songs to, as an album, as a whole cohesive unit, to connect in in a certain way. But you also want them to be something where if people are going to, pull up a song from Wrist Meet Razor, and all of a sudden they pull up this album and they pick something, no matter what they pick, people around them are going to be like, dude, yeah, or something like that.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think also to that extent, like you write as a musician, you write music kind of to speak to the moment, but then you put together records to have a general aesthetic and a general theme, even if sometimes, you know, that general theme is kind of harder for other people to see. And I think for this record especially, I was really influenced by as far as like organizing goes, at least when it comes to album organizations. Me personally I was really interested by kind of classic records like Downward Spiral by Nine Inch Nails that aren't exactly, there's not one concept throughout the record. Like it's not a concept record, but it kind of is a concept record. Like it's an emotional concept record, and then at times it's even more of like a kind of a roller coaster ride. And so it's following different momentums and then kind of going in and out. And I thought that kind of thing was always something that I related to even more than, you know, actual, you know, concept records that are like a movie. So I think this record, I think Replica of a Strange Love is very much akin to something like that.
So now you're making me look more even forward to the time this thing releases, due to the fact that one thing I've talked with a couple other artists as well, and one thing I'm big on is take a look at how people consume music today, especially through streaming services, through YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it might be. And it's kind of like you just pick and choose everything. But if you go back to kind of like what you're talking about, formatting this album and kind of layering it so that it kind of has more of that classical album structure feel to it, like with that Nine Inch Nails album, it's kind of like you want to listen to this thing from top to bottom and really go through that emotion, go through that whole entire roller coaster, because on albums that I've done that for, it's like you really want to go and do that to experience the whole entire thing, experience the music the way the artist wants you to experience the music, in terms of, okay, this song, I want you to experience this one first because it might make you feel this way. And all of a sudden, I'm going to hit you with this, maybe lighten up a little bit, maybe lift you up, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm going to hit you with something super heavy and just go through this overall emotional feel. So by the time you get done with the album, you're literally sitting on the floor, take off your headphones and just say, holy shit, what did I just go through? Because I've done that before and it's amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a very cool thing. I'm a big fan of like cinema too. And I feel like that's, you know, good movies kind of have the same thing going on for them. Like they are able to evoke a number of different emotions, and then, you know, once it's over, it feels like it was a full experience, like you've almost like lived a different life. And so I don't know, if you're capable of doing that with a record, I think it's a great accomplishment. So that's something that was attempted here for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Like even using the movie thing example as well, just to kind of connect it more with people out there that might not necessarily listen to the full entire album all the way through. You should, because think about with the movie, you might be watching it and you're really getting fully immersed in the overall themes, the emotions behind it. And there are times where all of a sudden you're watching it and you're going through that roller coaster and you're relating certain emotions in that movie to yourself and to your personal experiences, or you're watching the movie. And sometimes I do this. So I'm like, I keep thinking like, okay, if I was in this movie, what would I be doing in this scene, this scene, this scene? All of a sudden when you're listening to a full on album, it's kind of like the artist is taking you through, kind of guiding you through this experience of emotion, no matter what it might be. But it's not like they're holding your hand and like, okay, now you're going here. It's like, I'm taking you to this emotion. And once you get there, your mind's just going to end up taking you into a certain memory, into a certain emotion, to a certain path. And all of a sudden, you're going to end up getting lost in your whole entire self. And all of a sudden, this soundtrack is basically just going to connect with you on a more personal, spiritual, emotional, mental, whatever kind of level it might be. It's truly something that is incredible. And again, that's why I'm a big proponent of, if you're going to have an album and you're going to want to listen to a band's new album, listen to it from top to bottom first. Listen all the way through. Really take it in. Because if you kind of like go through it piece by piece, you're going to miss out on so much that's there. Yeah.
And good bands, classic bands that care, will always put a lot of effort into the structures of their CDs. It's kind of a modern thing, but I think also the other side of that coin is that if you are a good band, you're able to write good singles as well, so that they can stand up on their own. But if you're a fan of any kind of band and you think that their art and their creativity is what has drawn you to them, I would absolutely recommend listening to their full records, because they put so much time and effort into the order of that. It's just part of the artistic thing of it, you know.
It's part of the beauty of it too, because even there's times, like, again, go back to movies. There are times you watch movies and you see certain things in there and you feel certain emotions that you kind of find out certain things about yourself just through that movie. Now,
Right,
when it comes
right.
to music, I think that's a lot more, honestly, if you go through a whole entire album, I think it's a lot more common because, again, you're being guided to those emotions, to those memories, but it's your memories that are taking over. It's not, you're kind of, if sometimes with a movie, you're distracted kind of by what's going on. With the music, it's the sound, and it just, again, like I said, with that quote, it decorates time, so it just takes you back to the certain emotion, certain time. And it's transcendent in a way, and all of a sudden you might be listening to a song like I did it with when Polaris came out with The Death of Me in 2020. I was driving, listening to the whole entire thing through and through. When Above My Head came on, like right as it was done, I almost pulled over to the side of the highway and stopped because I was just it was one of the most crazy, transcendent, just intense experiences ever. And I probably wouldn't have gotten to that point had I not gone through the album run through from top to bottom. And I kind of had to stop because it was song number 7. I had 3 left, but I'm like, what the hell did I just go through?
Yeah, no, good music sticks with you, especially when it comes to like the building up of a good song and kind of the way that it comes in on a record. And sometimes the impact is less if you just listen to it by itself. That's what I think, at least.
Oh, and I've even talked about some other people with this too, but like one, I think the best ways to go about listening to music too is especially an album at night. Go in your car, go for a drive, put it on, and have the only thing that's in front of you to notice is like just the road, because you kind of have a little bit of concentration on reality, but the music just lets you get into it, and you're kind of in your own little box at that point, and you're so focused on that. It's something that I'm a big proponent of, and I remember I did a trip up to, I think it was Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. It was like a 3.5-hour ride. Now we had like 3 EPs, like 2 EPs and 3 albums that I listened to. I'm like, okay, let's just run them straight through and see what happens, and it's intense. But it's so much. I just think it's better just because, again, you get the overall feel of it, and then you really put yourself in that situation to experience the album through and through.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a good benchmark too for how to listen to music, and just focus on it. Driving definitely has kind of been a thing for me too. That's helped a lot when it comes to just really kind of immersing yourself into something. So
I'll say, did you do something like that a lot when you were working on writing this record and really taking it in, and really, especially with some of the different influences and different things you were thinking, just really working through that in terms of like maybe listening to music while just driving in the car and just letting your thoughts really take hold?
yeah, I think with this record it was real interesting because typically, you would write, especially with lyrics, because for the whole kind of overview of this record and how we did it, a lot of the song we had written a lot of different parts of songs, and then we went up to rural Kentucky and pre-pro'd all of the instrumentals with Isaac from Knocked Loose. So he had a huge say in kind of how the songs were structured. We also had a lot of input, and so it was a great collaboration. But after that happened in February of 2020, and so after that, that's when COVID really started to take hold, and so it became more of a matter of trying to figure out how to replicate a normal writing kind of situation in order to write the lyrics to the record. And so at times, I think it presented something that's so unique that'll never come up again, and that's this 2020 as a year and kind of the situation surrounding it. I'll never have another writing session like that where the songs are being written while this kind of doom scroll of nightmarish reality is playing in the background, and I'm stuck in my 1-bedroom apartment by myself, and there's no real hope kind of for the music industry or for even touring or for even releasing this record. To be honest with you, like there's no one really was going to want to release a record while there was no idea to tour, or that wasn't even, going to be a player. So yeah, the record was written in a very specific place that'll never be able to be replicated properly. So as far as like what I would do to like get into the right mindset, I would sometimes drive and listen to it, but the mindset never really left. So I usually would just sit down and it would come pouring out until I was like kind of numb, and then I would stop and then just repeat every day until it was done.
Holy shit, that's one hell of a way to go about it too. But then again, I love what you said about the fact that there's going to be no other time in your life where you're going to be able to write with that kind of a mentality with what everything was going on. Because, I mean, is there going to be another pandemic that we're going to have to go through something like this?
Right,
I mean, the last time they had a pandemic like this,
and the thing is that even if that does happen, it'll never go the same way. Like, now that this has happened in all of our lifetimes, if it happens again, it's not going to be the same at all. It's not going to feel the same. There's going to be, you know, probably a lot of different safeguards in place. So the shutdown's just not going to be the same. So it's truly like completely unimitatable what's happening right now. Like, it can't be imitated. This is such a unique time that I feel fortunate that I was able to write during it, because it won't ever come out like this again.
Oh God, no, nothing will ever come out like this again. And
right.
Not only with you, but like with a bunch of other bands as well in the scene. It's just everything that's happened over the past year, especially with some of the music that's coming out. I think a lot of people kind of took that time, of course, to write, because what else was there to do at that point when touring was non-existent? There was really no hope for it in the not too distant future. So What else are we going to do? And what else are you going to be able to kind of maintain, even at times, for even like everybody else, your own sanity, because you're kind of locked away, shut down from everybody, kind of having to be on your own. It's how do you express certain emotions? How do you express certain things? How do you express the certain anxiety you might be building up inside you? Maybe you have deprived. Maybe it might be something. Who knows what it is? But be able to kind of take that mindset, sit down and write, especially with everything that everyone has gone through over the past year. When listening to this record, what's going to end up happening is they're going to be able to connect the dots with, again, those emotions that you had when you were writing this. And even as time goes on, this is going to be an event that people are never going to forget due to the drastic change that it caused and how long it's continued on since.
Right, exactly. And like I said, not to tie it completely back to one of the first things that I said in this, but I think it's up to the artist to give context to that, because I feel like we've been fed so much already about any number of different political and factual and scientific and all of that. There's not really been a real artistic kind of stamp on the last year. And I think it's up to artists and musicians in general to give it context so that we can kind of, come to some sort of closure and kind of make some sort of sense of this,
Now, Justin, that is something I absolutely 100% agree with as well, because again, it kind of relates back to that quote of art decorates space, music decorates time, where it's one thing I'm always a big proponent of is when it comes to music, because people connect with it so emotionally, and with artists describing their emotions through it, it helps people describe emotions that they had gone through or are going through that they have trouble really trying to explain. It's like, well, what was it like to go through something like this? What was it like to go through depression, anxiety, have happiness, feel like confident in yourself? And if it's hard to explain, it's like, well, I would listen to this song, and this song perfectly kind of drove that whole entire feeling, perfectly explained it. So when it comes to people trying to come to grips of what happened in 2020, what's happening right now, and getting back to the return of live music and everything getting back to normal, it's how do we express what happened during that time? How do we express our feelings, people? How do we express those emotions? How do we explain that? Honestly, people are going to end up looking to artists and musicians to put their stamp on it, because it will help explain it. And there are artists and musicians right now that are doing that, you being one of them as well. You guys are doing that to really help us come to grips with and come to terms with what has happened since March of 2020.
Right, exactly. And it will hopefully keep growing, and more and more artists will at least stay in the bounds of what's happening, and not try to run from it or pretend it never happened. I think that might be the one thing that could be the worst outcome of this, is if things just go back to how they were without any mention of the last year. I think it deserves a good hard look by everyone, I think.
It definitely does. And even like seeing some of the music that's coming out now, especially with more of the like hard rock and metal realm of things, including all the subgenres behind it as well, I'm seeing a lot of the music that's coming out in 2021 that does tackle some of these themes and these emotions and feelings in certain ways. Beartooth being one of them. Rise Against, my favorite band, of course, being one of them as well, with more of a political stance behind it. While She Sleeps is put out something that kind of really tackled a little bit of that mentality in a different way. So again, there's definitely examples of that happening. So I do agree with you, where the one thing we don't want to see is artists kind of shying away from this, because then it's kind of like when people look back at 2020 and early 2021, it's kind of like just this black hole of emotions where people want to stay as far away from it, because if you start to think about it, you're going to get sucked into all the negativity behind it. When artists can help and musicians can help you kind of come to terms with everything, make sense of everything, really be able to understand the emotions that you went through and everything. And to essentially, as time goes on, not be scared of it in a way.
Right. And also, I think to another extent, there'll always be a very distinct morbid curiosity, and being able to document all this is going to just play off as some sort of historical event more so than anything. And I think that's important, honestly. I think that's really important, that we're here to document what's happening.
Yeah, because when it comes to like the contextual stuff, when it comes to just, the events that happen, yeah, history books are going to basically contextualize that. But when it comes to the emotions that people went through, how do you contextualize that? That's where artists and music come in.
Right, exactly. And I think the ultimate there too is that the facts and the science is going to be there forever. But one of the things that I think at least American society has lacked over the past couple hundred years is a lot of things, a lot of huge instances would happen in American history, and we don't really have too much of a real context to it. We have what happened, and then we have news sources, and we have political sources, but we don't really have a ton of everything else. And now, in an age where social media is as popular as it is, there will always be another element of that. But even to grow bigger than social media, I think to the most genuine level, art speaks volumes with stuff like this.
Oh, absolutely. I think a good example of that would be, take a look at a band like Creedence Clearwater Revival, especially with a lot of the music they made during the Vietnam War era, because when it comes to more of that rebellious anti-war spirit, I'm thinking about, okay, is there something that kind of we can relate to and really feel the emotion behind it? Honestly, listen to CCR. You're going to end up being able to pull that out. When it comes to certain things else in the past, go back to even the 1920s, because of how big jazz was at the time. And again, the roaring 20s, how big it was, and the more American prosperity that was happening. It does make sense that you're going to get some more of these, happier kind of vibes going on. But honestly, a lot of stuff before that where music necessarily it couldn't be really recorded and those sounds got lost. We know the facts of what happened. We know the events, but we don't understand the emotions of what the people went through, because we've lost that art. We've lost that touch. We've lost that connection between our basically the historical side and the emotional side that goes along with it.
And I think it's, kind of ties back to our humanity and how we relate to the world. And I think even bigger than some bands have always been able to kind of speak. But I think it's interesting that a lot of times when highly politicized things happen, a lot of the voices that we know the most are political voices. And they aren't voices that are saying, this is what happened in context with my life. It's not necessarily political, and it's probably, maybe not even necessarily positive or positive or even popular, but it is relatable in a real kind of human sense. And then you kind of put that in art and kind of give it its own obscured kind of thing, and then people can read into it that way. And that more so is a product of the 21st century, and something that we've been doing a lot more recently. So I think this event exactly is going to be a benchmark for the future of this kind of way to emote.
It's going to be a benchmark for history going forward, due to, again, to the fact that I think I'll go back to using the Vietnam War as kind of like the first opening kind of realm of it, due to the fact that you strictly had songs and strictly had music and art that was really, especially music, because that's where I'm going to go with this, is more strictly focused in on the emotions that that certain people were feeling at that time. And as time has gone on, people really kind of started to take hold of that. But when it comes to this pandemic, everyone has gone through this. This didn't just keep some people off to the side. This didn't just, affect a certain group of people. No, this affected every single person. So when it comes to music and art, it's every single artist, every single musician has a chance to put their stamp on it, put their stamp on the emotions that were felt through it. And then all these different genres, whether it's metal, rock, country, pop, hip hop, jazz, I mean, you name it. Everyone's able to put their stamp on it. And then everybody who listens to all those different genres, anybody that listens to music is able to connect with what had happened and understand the emotion, be able to come to terms with what had happened instead of just looking at it on paper where it's, already in 2020, there was this pandemic. This is what happened. This is how many people died. This is the political side of it. Just instead of keeping it as just, cut and dry, very binary instead of ones and zeros, just you're going to end up creating this gigantic picture that in the future, people are going to be able to look back at and really understand what we went through in terms of, okay, this is what happened, but how did it feel like to go through this? Well, here's a whole list of music that explains it.
Right. Exactly. It's important.
It is absolutely important, absolutely paramount. And again, when it comes down to the fact that you guys want to make sure that this album does have, and your music has more of this like timeless feel to really connect with it, it does make a lot of sense with using this as kind of the catalyst for it, due to the fact that, again, people could be listening to Wrist Meet Razor 15, 20, 30 years down the line, and all of a sudden listening to these songs and be able to connect it with the emotion of the time that you were writing these songs in, be able to connect with everything that was going on instead of this is what happened, this is what it felt like to be able to go through something like that, to have to go through something like that, and to feel like potentially at times, you're lost. You don't know what the hell is going on because, hell, for a good amount of time during 2020, we had no idea what to expect the next day.
Right, exactly. And like I said, I think there's, a bunch of different elements to it. There's a morbid kind of curiosity that'll creep up as time moves on, just as there is with any kind of tragedy. So there's a lot of elements that I think are really built into one kind of situation, that writing a record around it is a very unique experience that I feel fortunate to have been able to have, despite what it was.
I'm gonna be looking forward to see what people have to say, especially when it comes out as well, because again, with knowing this whole entire idea behind it as well, and be able to hopefully get as many people as possible to know the whole entire idea around it, to then all of a sudden pick up a copy of the album when it comes out. Again, the album is Replica of a Strange Love, coming out June 11th, 2021. Again, there's my second big plug for that one. Woo, there we go. But really listening, especially like Last Tango in Paris, is just, again, like I was kind of saying, like every part felt like there was like a little bit of a different influence there, a little bit of a different feel to it in that song, not only just from like the verses and the chorus, but like the first verse and the second verse. Again, there was a completely different feel in terms of everything flowed together really nicely. Don't get me wrong on that, but it felt like, again, each part had just this different kind of little emotional twist or different personality twist on top of it that just really made you think about everything that was going on, especially more around the time of, for me, when I was listening to it, just kind of thinking about how, especially before the pandemic, is everybody was kind of feeling, happy, normal, but then all of a sudden we had to get shut down, and all of a sudden the complacency with what was going on in life at the time just completely got shattered, because then all of a sudden we didn't know what the hell to expect the next day. And then all of a sudden, as everything kept getting stayed shut down, we were getting complacent with the fact that we might have to stay like this forever. And it just took some time where all of a sudden, I don't know why, I just really got a whole complacency feel off of this, where it's, you don't want to have to be in that kind of a situation.
Yeah, it's it's a lot of different things, and I've never wanted to give Last Tango or any of these songs too much of a definition, because I think, again, it's a lot up to the person listening to gather what they want. But the song itself was written just as an ode to numbness, and how much I kind of looked back on the complacency of the past with bitterness, and kind of wishing that I didn't ever want to get into that position again, where I felt complacent to a person or a thing. So that's basically what the song's about. It has a bunch of different themes to it too, and I think thematically it can go in any number of different ways. There were things that I thought about while writing it that I don't even think they're not really relevant to someone listening to it at all, and I wouldn't even really want to poison the well by telling people that. So, but whatever you get out of it, I like, and if you get something positive out of it, I like it more. So
Oh, don't get me wrong, because whenever I go deep into a song and I try and figure out the meaning, if I talk to an artist about it, I'm always like, let me give you what I think it is first, because I don't want to end up. It's either like I want to see if it kind of matches up kind of where you were going with the song, but I never want to match up like perfectly 100% because again, we're two different people. We've gone through two completely different lifestyles in terms of when we were born to where we are now. Our experiences are completely different. However, the theme might be like the main idea, we might have the same idea, but then where we take that all depends upon what we've gone through, what we've experienced. And when it comes to the whole entire complacency thing, I mean, there was a time in life where all of a sudden I'm like, I graduated college, I'm like, oh boy, I got the world on my shoulders. I got everything in front of me. I gave it 6 months and all of a sudden I was sitting there thinking, is this what the rest of my life is going to be like? Wake up, go to like a 9-to-5 job, go home, sleep, repeat until I'm like 65, 66, probably older than that, and then just wither away. Like, is this what life is supposed to be like? Because it felt easy, and I'm just like,
Right.
I was scared shitless of it, and it just I became bitter, like you said, bitter, that complacency feel. So again, when it came to the whole entire complacency style of it, I did connect with it on that route. However, the way that I connected with it might be a completely different way than you had connected with it when you were writing it.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that's kind of what makes music so magical. And I didn't really think about it. It wasn't really written from a complacency like you just mentioned. However, I've felt that too, and I've been in that situation. I, also worked. I don't even really ever talk about this, but I used to be a teacher. I was a teacher for a couple of years out of college, and yeah, I felt the same thing. It felt very mundane and locked into a schedule, and it wasn't. It feels like a trap, and in a lot of ways, I kind of related some of the themes in this song and multiple other songs to the idea that Foucault came up with when he was discussing prisons and relating them to how we create our own prisons. And this song, kind of in a nutshell, is about escaping your own prison as well. So I think it relates in more ways than I would even originally imagine to other people that have nothing to do with the song.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, take a look at what just happened with us when we talked about these different instances where kind of the specifics of these instances might be different, especially like what we kind of went through. But it's the emotion that's tied in there and the feeling that's tied in there, which is kind of the same, which, again, kind of like that base of the meaning of the song. But then how people take and how people can like take it for themselves. It's, again, going to be based on their personal experiences, what they went through, what their mindset is to really form this for themselves.
Right. Exactly.
So, and that's where I'll say that's where you get the music that is absolutely the most powerful, because it connects with people on such a different way and it speaks to everybody. And it, again, like I said earlier, when I'm trying to describe something to someone, it's like, how did it feel to go through something like this? I'm like, let me see if I can find a song for you that really puts it in perspective, because there are times where it's hard to explain. But if I put out a song there, again, it's the artist is putting out their interpretation of that emotion as well. And if it's something I really connect with and I match up with that emotion, I'm going to play it, because if I'm connected with emotion, if you're the one that made that kind of emotional connection on that song, if I show it to someone else, they might have the same emotional connection. But again, they're going to be related to so many different things where all of a sudden we're connecting all to the same song for all different reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And that, that kind of ties to the magic of live music as well. And that's why live music has been so sorely missed, is that experience, having that same experience with, hundreds or thousands of other people simultaneously is something that can't be replicated anywhere else in life. Like, you can't recreate that unless you're at a concert or a show. So
oh God, no, you can't recreate that at all.
Like, we can talk about it and you can listen to it and you can agree with us, but it's not the same. It'll never be the same.
No, because for me, it's just, here's a perfect example for it, because I always look at it, there are two places that I go to where it's kind of like my mind just becomes perfectly at ease in terms of I just have to focus on what's going on right in front of me. And it's when I'm at a concert seeing live music, or I'm at the gym. And of course, the pandemic, both things got knocked out. But then after like 2 months, all of a sudden the gym was able to open back up. So I had that back. But it's not the same. It's not as powerful of an experience, because at the gym, yes, I am focused on one thing. I'm able to clear my mind, but it's just me that's going through what I'm going through. When it comes to live music, it's there are literally thousands of people that are at these venues. We're all going to go and see this band because we have a positive connection to them, or a song, or just their message somehow. Doesn't matter what it is, but we all have this certain positive connection. And when we're there, it's this whole entire group thing where everyone is just in this whole entire state of euphoria. Whether you're on the side, whether you're on the balcony, whether you're like me going crazy in the pit, it doesn't matter. Everyone is just in this state of happy euphoria because it seems like the world makes sense at that moment.
Exactly. And I think that's another thing that's kind of been real hard as people look forward to these moments. They kind of give you a break from your own personal reality so you can refocus on everything else. And so, that's one of the most sorely missed things of the last year. And hopefully that'll be rectified in the next couple months. So
that's what I'm hoping for, seeing different shows pop up, whether they're smaller shows, just like a couple like bar venues with a little stage, whether it's when my favorite music venue here in Milwaukee gets going again, even though I think the nearest show they have maybe that's on the schedule is in August. Still got my ticket for that one. So yes. And then seeing all the festivals that are happening as well, that are still potentially happening, releasing their lineups as well. I'm just thinking, again, it sucks that I still got to wait for these, but again, there's finally a date set. There's finally a moment where I can look forward to and be like, that's it. That's the time. It's hopeful. It's inspiring hope at some point. It's inspiring hope in so many people that live music is coming back, where it's inspiring the ability of happiness, that ability of just connecting with so many people, the ability, the happiness of community. It's inspiring all that hope.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely is.
And we need that back. And also we need you back on stage as well, because after listening to Last Tango Paris, I'm just like, again, can I get in the mosh pit for this thing? Because if someone goes absolutely crazy in this, if I break my nose like I almost did a couple of times, you'll probably still see me like, did somebody just break their nose in the pit? And they'll be me. Yeah, I'm good. Don't worry. We're good. I'm happy. I'm having a fun time. Also, my nose will be like 3 inches that way.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah, hopefully we'll be up in Milwaukee as soon as we can possibly be there, because I like being in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a good spot, so good shows there.
So I always enjoy up here, but all of a sudden, if for some reason you can't make it here and you end up playing in Madison, Wisconsin, or if you end up playing in Chicago, each are literally less than an hour and a half drive for me. And with how much great music, how many great bands come out of Chicago, and how many bands that have come out of Chicago that I absolutely love, I'm like, if there's a show in Chicago and it's possible for me to get there, the likelihood I'm gonna be there is 95%. It's like, okay, I'm in. Let's go. Drive down to like Wilmette or to Skokie, which is their like one of their northern suburbs. Take the train in because, well, then I don't have to park my car downtown Chicago, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, no, I agree. All great spots. All great spots.
All great spots. And again, hope to see you up here soon, well, especially when like live music returns, because one thing I noticed especially was people are always talking about, especially in the media, like, oh, rock is dead, metal is dead, it's dying. I'm like, wait, hold up, pump the brakes here. Have you been to a live show recently? Because there are times where I'll go to the rave here in Milwaukee. They've got 3 different stages. And there are times where they have a hard rock or a metal act or any of the subgenres in the basement stage, which is the smallest one.
Right.
And people are lining up outside the door just trying to get in somehow. The demand is absolutely insane, but it's never talked about. Yeah.
Rock music will never really die. It might die in, the eyes of the mainstream or the eyes of, music critics or whoever, people that don't really matter. Honestly, if you care about it and you're willing to go out of your way to buy it or to attend a live show, then it'll always be alive. That's how I see it, at least.
It'll always be alive. And I think another big reason is because it's the community of people that are around there as well, from the bands to the fans as well. It's everyone. There's very few times I've gone to a show where I left in this like full on state of like incredible like happiness and euphoria. And like the few times that I haven't, only one time was because like I'm like, the show was okay. It wasn't the best thing. It wasn't like the craziest thing I'd ever seen. There was another time where I'm like, I left. It was like I just was going through a bunch of shit in life, but it was something that I absolutely needed, thanks to an acoustic set from Breaking Benjamin. That one really hit me in the heart on that one. But it's something where, again, it's the community is there. The people are there. You're going to go and you're going to end up talking to so many different people at these shows. Again, and everyone's experiencing the music in a positive way. Specifics are different, but again, it's the overall emotion that's tied to it is incredibly positive, to the point where, like I said, there are people lining up outside these venues to try and get in, especially in 2019. There are people lining up outside the rave trying to get into certain shows. And the reason they couldn't was because they were sold out. They would have moved them to a different stage, but there was a different band on that stage already. So you kind of got to, honor those different contracts. But I remember I was seeing, this was November. They had some pop artists in the ballroom, which is the bigger one. They had some alternative artists in the club level, which is the middle one. Then the basement one, it was Awake at Last, Light the Torch, Fit for a King, and the headliner was Ice Nine Kills. And that show sold out faster than the other three. And I don't think the other three even sold out. And there was so much demand. They were like, should we move these around because of how many people are trying to get into this show? They didn't. I still had my ticket, though. And it was, well, I still talk about that show every now and again. So you can tell it's awesome.
Is the rave that venue that's haunted? Is
that
the rave? Yeah.
Yeah,
I've never been able to play there yet, but I've heard. It's like there's like another basement that has a pool and that's haunted, right? That's what it is.
Yeah, there's and I think there's supposedly two ghosts. There's one that's a janitor, and there's one that's supposedly the 15-year-old boy who drowned in the pool. And over Halloween this past year, because they're trying to make money, they're trying to stay afloat somehow. They play off the whole entire haunted vibe of it, so they ended up doing haunted tours of the venue where literally you paid like 40 or $50, depending upon the time you were going to go. You got like an hour to an hour to 15 minutes. They turned off all the lights. They gave you a flashlight and they said, go nuts.
And the whole entire actually amazing. That's actually really cool. That's something I would absolutely do.
I was all in it the whole entire time. I'm just walking around thinking, where the hell is this damn pool? Because I know it's here somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I know it's here somewhere. Got down to the basement stage, and I'm like, okay, it's got to be around here somewhere because, you're not going to have a pool further up. Like, you're going to have it where you can have it on the ground. All of a sudden, I started walking behind. I found this door. I opened up, and boom, there's the pool. And
You found it? Oh,
yeah.
Man.
And there were a couple of people that were behind me, and they were looking like they were kind of creeped out by it because the venue, they put a smoke machine at the bottom of the pool to kind of make it, if you found it, like, it was going to be a lot creepier. So everyone's kind of freaked out over it. I got my light. I'm shining it all over the walls because almost every single artist that comes through there, they let them go to the pool and sign the pool walls or the walls around there. And I was there infatuated seeing, okay, what bands do I know and what shows of these bands that signed there did I go see? And I'm like trying to pick out every single one.
Yeah,
I had three.
I had heard that the rave didn't want people to get into that pool area because that was the area where someone died, right? There was some sort of aspect of the pool that they didn't want people to see. But then I know bands and people that have been on tour with bands that have been allowed into that area, and they've said it feels real heavy, real strange vibe down there.
It does because I think the pool closed. I think they shut it down like the mid 80s or something. Right. So it nothing has changed in there just because of all the moisture that was in there. It kind of does have a little bit more of that like mildewy dark effect to it. So it definitely if you think about what things would look like haunted in a horror movie, this is it. Like this is perfect for it. And of course, everyone's freaked out. I'm trying to find different band signatures. I'm like, oh shit, did I go to this show? I know I saw that band, but I didn't see that in that show. Nope. And all of a sudden we're walking around, people are still getting scared. I'm like, God damn, I need to find one that's good. All of a sudden I turn to the side, big giant one that says Ice Nine Kills was here. I'm like, let's find the date. All right, someone take my picture next to this one. I need it. And there's just me just going the whole entire time, just being a goof. But I'm like, I just looked at them like, this is so cool. And then there's also a story where there's a janitor that died there, and they have a chair set up for him like in a certain area. And apparently the chair will move over the course of the night. And if for some reason someone else moves the chair from that spot, then all of a sudden, apparently just all creepy havoc breaks loose.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I'm jealous. I definitely hopefully I'll be able to do that at some point because it sounds very interesting.
I'll say when it comes time, because here in the upper Midwest, I don't know what it is, but when it comes to rock and metal, it is definitely not dead to the point where those shows that are come here, they're consistently the most, percentage wise, the most sold. Energy wise, they are the absolute craziest and the most fun. I think the only one that might have been crazier was the one time when I saw Seven Dust was performing, but then they were opening for In This Moment, and below us was Tech Nine and his whole entire crew. So all of a sudden it's like, here's In This Moment playing, and all of a sudden we're feeling the bass from the floor from Tech Nine. How crazy is it? Where everyone's like, Can we just get everybody to play together? Because I'm pretty sure everyone would want to be in this giant ballroom, just hanging out, having a good time. All of a sudden, here comes in this moment. Okay, here comes Tech Nine. Here comes Seven Dust. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Yeah, I know. I've heard good things about the rave, so I'm definitely a fan. Without having been there, I'm already a fan.
Nice. Well, I will say this: please do come to the rave if you get a chance, and I will definitely make sure that no matter what, when you are on stage and you guys get that mosh pit forming, I'm gonna be right in the middle of it.
Yeah, there we go.
And if you guys end up being the band that sends me to the hospital or the ER for the first time, again, I don't want to do that because I know how expensive that can be. But you know what? Someone's got to do it.
Right. Yeah, I feel it. I respect it.
It's gonna be awesome, and I really do hope that at some point when live shows do return, that you will end up coming back to Milwaukee. But also when it comes to live shows, I do have to ask this question because with the new album coming out on June 11th, again, plug number 3 right there for you. Want to make sure you get the album name right so I don't mess it up. The album name is called Replica of a Strange Love. Boom. There it is. Okay, that was really weird going. Instead of going boom, there it is, I went boom. There it is. But when it comes to live music coming back as well, what are you guys doing in terms of getting ready to promote this album in a live music setting and really just returning to live music in general?
Well, right now, things are very up in the air with a lot of the big, larger scale tours right now, because a lot of things are, I think, in my opinion, being moved from the 2020 kind of era to now. So a lot of the stuff that was already booked just getting pushed right to right now. But the plan is still to tour. So if we have it our way, we'll be touring the whole U.S. by the end of this year, if not by the fall. So that's the plan.
I hope to God that plan comes true, though. And I mean, I know you might have a couple of certain things in the works right now. I'm not going to ask about those because if they're not official, I don't want to know about them because I don't want to put something out there. It's like, oh, hey, they said this and then it didn't come true. And then all of a sudden we all look stupid. No one wants to be like that.
Right.
But it's just somewhere, again, for someone like myself, too, it gives me hope for the fact that you guys are planning on touring in 2021, either like late summer, early fall. It depends upon what ends up happening. Also, if there are certain tours with other bands, what bands you're going to be able to tour with at the time. You never know what might happen. But, I mean, after listening to The Last Tango in Paris, me now being super anticipated for Replica of a Strange Love, it's going to be somewhere, especially with those more, like, kind of like, you could fit in with like a hardcore punk crowd, like a metalcore crowd. Honestly, even just get like a hard rock band kind of just leading into it. It just depends upon the flow of the overall kind of the way the tour separates. Like, okay, this band goes on, all of a sudden kind of just perfectly have it so that the fans really, it's kind of like setting up a tour is kind of like setting up an album in a way too, where it's just have the flow go really nicely from one band to the other and just take people on a kind of on a ride in its own, just based on the bands that are there. It's something that's pretty cool. So it's gonna be interesting to see just not only where you're going to be touring, but with what bands as well, because it could be really anybody in the rock and metal sphere.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there are a lot of agents and managers and band members that take, tour selections very serious. So I agree. I think whatever ends up happening will do justice to one of the things that you said, for sure.
Just do justice to, I'll put it this way. If you're going to do justice to one thing, it's just going to be this. Keep making kick-ass music.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the plan.
That's the plan. That's the plan. And it feels like at this point, kind of a great way to kind of close this conversation on itself right now. Again, everybody, Replica of the Strange Love coming out June 11th, 2021. You can listen to Last Tango in Paris right now. And as we close out, Justin, one thing I always like to do is give the artist of the band that's on a chance to just say whatever they want to at the end of the show. Just plug anything they want to plug, whatever it might be. So, Justin, floor is yours.
I want to thank you for letting me do this. I appreciate all the support and help, and being able to do podcasts like this are really important. The record comes out June 11th. If you haven't yet, you can pre-order the vinyl at our website, www.WRISTMEETRAZOR.com. We're running low on our first press, so it's definitely something you want to jump on. We also have a mailing list there, and people on the mailing list are getting extra stuff, lots of extra stuff. So join up, go visit the website, do your thing.
Well, now I'm going to end this podcast with 4 things. I usually do 3, but I'll do 4. 1, because you're saying, you got a vinyl out for this ready to go, and after the first press, rather limited. I mean, this vinyl player right here is kind of hungry for new music. So I think
There
right
we
after
go.
this podcast, I'm going to end up logging on to your website and end up picking up a copy for myself as well. So that brings me to number 2, which is my usual standard number 1. When it comes to Wrist Meet Razor, when it comes to being able to find the band online, social media wise, and be able to stream their music and pre-save Replica of a Strange Love, I know what you guys are thinking. Can we just make this simple and just like have a place where we can click on all the links and just go right there? That's what I have in the description of this podcast for you. So look at YouTube, Spotify Podcast, iHeart Radio. You'll find Wrist Meet Razor online, and you're going to see just this a label of everything. The links are going to be there. I make it as easy as possible for you to find the band, buy some merch, check out their music, and pre-save Replica of a Strange Love when it comes out on June 11th. So I got you covered on that one. Now time for number 3. Now, Justin, this is something that when it comes to me having guests on the podcast that I absolutely enjoy having on the podcast, so this is like 100% of them because I love doing this. This one, absolutely no exception to the rule, so this is definitely happening. It is a promise I love to make because for having you on the podcast, I want to see you play live. I mean, hell, I've been talking up the rave to you, so I want to see you play live here or anywhere for that matter. So here's my promise to you, because it's not an if, it is a when I get to see you play live for the first time. My promise is this: if you're drinking, man, first round's on me. If you're not, well, then pizza's on me.
There we go. I like Sprite, so I don't drink, but I do like Sprite.
Well, I had someone else on that a couple weeks ago. They're like, yeah, we don't drink, but if you buy me a Diet Coke, will be good. I'm like, I'll take that as a yes. For Sprite, I'll take that as a yes as well. So I got you covered on that one. So cool. Justin, in all good conscience, I cannot end this podcast with goodbye because, well, I want to see you play live. I want to see you keep kicking ass. I want to see you keep doing what you do. And hell, I gotta pay up on my debt right now. At some point, I gotta see you play live, and I gotta get you a Sprite. So I cannot end this. I can't end this with a goodbye. I gotta end this with see you later.
Definitely see you very soon.
Whoa, folks, that's my review with Justin Fornof from the band Wrist Meet Razor. Again, Replica of a Strange Love. Their brand new album comes out on June 11th, 2021. If you're a big fan of metalcore, if you love this stuff, this is going to be a band you want to get into because listen to their new song, Last Tango in Paris. It does have one hell of a feature on it with Knocked Loose's, God, what's his name? I completely forgot. It's Isaac something. Oh my God, look at me really messing this up. Yikes. Kevin, what are you doing? But yes, it's got Isaac from Knocked Loose on there. It is a great track. It just has so many different flowing parts to it. You will absolutely love it if you love metalcore. It is heavy. It's hard. It's raw. That's the best way, but it is just raw. So definitely go check it out. I will be checking it out when the time comes for this album to come out on June 11th. Who's going to be listening to it? Me. Who's going to make sure you listen to it? Me. So when it comes to, again, everything with Wrist Meet Razor, please check out the description of the podcast. You can follow them on all their socials, buy some of their merch, support them, pre-save the album, stream some of their music, and also follow us at MSOD Rocks and the Chord Progression Podcast as well. On that note, that's going to be for me, guys. Thank you for watching and listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. Brought to MSOD Rocks for Rock and Metal Thrive. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one up with a big, healthy, and hearty see ya.